now we're learning exactly how to tie the tzitzis. Yikach dalet chotim mitzad zeh, v'dalet mitzad zeh. We're talking about where you've already put the 4 strings through the holes. So you have now 4 on each side. It's really 4 ends of the like 4 ends of the same
string.
Right, so 4 strings, 2 ends of each string makes 8. Right, so you take the 4 ends of the strings from one side and the 4 ends of the 4 other ends of the strings from the other side. Do 2 knots, one on top of the other. One of these is longer than the other. One of these 8 is longer than the other 7. And this one, you tie you tie around the 7, some windings. And then you do another 2 knots on top of each other. Again, you do more windings. You continue this procedure of windings and knots until you've done 4 double knots with the 4 gaps in between each of these double knots. You'll have windings. The number of times you have to do wind around, there's no shear fixed. We're going to see in a minute there is a minhag of how many we do, but there's no fixed shear how much one has to do. But what's important is that the part that's winded, all the knots and the windings together, should be 4 gudolim, which we mentioned first, 4 finger breadths. And the strings should be 8 gudolim, 8 finger breadths. Hago says the Gemara, if your tzitzis are longer than this, then one should try and maintain this ratio, right, of 2 to 1.
How do they get the one that's longer? Initially has to be one that's longer?
It's preferable. That's what, when you buy it, that's what they do. They give you one longer one. So at one end you hold you hold it when you put it through. At one end you make it the same length as the other 3 strings, and the other length you have to be longer. We saw before that if it's not longer, it doesn't matter. We saw that you can do the krichos. It doesn't have to be with the same chut. You can alternate. You can do with different chutim. So you can, if they're all the same length, you can wind with one chut. Now it's going to be shorter than the other ones. And you do the next winding with a different string. You can do that. But nowadays, when we buy everything's ready-made, when you buy it, you'll buy one will always be longer.
Yeah, this is a problem if you're doing techelas, right? Because then there is one string that has to be longer than the other, which is the blue.
Right.
At least the blue half.
Right.
That has to be long. It's also good when you put the threads through at the beginning. This is my own tip. It's not that the group of 4 that are the same length. If you tie a small knot in them after you've measured it, that way you keep them separate as you're tying the knots. It makes it much easier as you go forward.
Well, yeah, we're going to see that not just it makes it easier. There's actually a halachic reason to do that, which we're going to see.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought I invented that.
No. Yeah, we'll see then. In the next one we'll get to that. Why one should do that. Okay, let's continue. We're now on the bottom line of the Shulchan Aruch. The minhag, this is the minhag the Shulchan Aruch saying. We're going to see that ours is slightly different to it. It's almost the same, but slightly different. We're going to do 7 windings on the first lot are 7. Ubasheni test, the next lot are 9. Ubashlishi Yud Aleph, then we do 11. Ravi Yud Gimel, right? 7, 9, 11, 13. Right? The total, if you add up 7, 9, 11, and 13, comes to 40. Communion Hashem Echod. This is almost the same Gemach as Hashem Echod. Hashem Echod Yud Kei Vav Kei Echod comes to 39. Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26. Echod is 13. That makes 39. Sho'ilim Lamed Test. Ve'im Hashem Hem Mem. With the name of Hashem that comes up to Mem. This we've discussed already. We mentioned at the end of each string. This is not what you're talking about. But at the end of each string to do a knot, so that the string doesn't open up. Because we mentioned each string is twisted from the shoe. Yeah. We've discussed that. We discussed it's better, preferable not to do a knot. Best is to put nail polish or a little bit of glue, slightly better. Okay. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah is going to explain to us all about the windings and knots. Okay. Mishnah Berurah is called Samachei. Samachei. So about halfway up the page of the previous page. What's the low back? Leminyan hakrichos, v'gam minyan hachulios, v'akshorim, ein ma'akiv medina. And the number of windings and the number of knots is not ma'akiv. Ragluhu lemitzvah namuvcha. It's just the best way of doing the mitzvah. Ki ha'he kishorim, remes she'alidei ze yizkor ha'hechum she'toira. The reason why we have 5 knots, right? The purpose of tzitzis is l'man tizkru. The purpose of the tzitzis is to remind us of the mitzvahs, and therefore we do 5 knots to remind us of the 5 books of the Torah. Each knot is double, so therefore 5 double knots means we have a total of 10 knots. We have a total of 10 knots. That reminds us of the 10 spheros of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the whole of Kabbalah is based on the 10 spheros of Hashem. Kehilla Keren Ami, the Tama Chulio is ein bebeis Yosef. Simkon Tzamach Vavrak Shei Yivchul, Badizu Besifyut Gimel. Shem Korach Afilu Chulio Echod, Avayras Shoresh Hadov. He's explained to us now something very important to understand what we need midoraisa and what you need midorabonon. Ki Kimu Chazal, to put in on B'tzitzis Gedil. As we mentioned in Parshas Kisovoi, tzitzis are referred to by a different name. In Shalach Lecho, which is what we read in Kriyas Shema, they're called tzitzis. In Kisovoi, in Kiseitze, they're referred to as Gedilim. Gedil. So the tzitzis have to be a Gedil. They have to be tied round. They also have to have, besides for the tied part, they also have to have strings that are separate. Tzitzis is like the locks of hair are referred to as tzitzis. Hair are individual strings. So the tzitzis have to be composed of both of these. Gedilim and tzitzis. Gedilim is the round part.
Your coils around the
right. And tzitzis are the strings that are separate. So we have both of our tzitzis. Gedilim and tzitzis. There's no prescribed length for the length of the gedil, the round part. But also a gap of kesher lemala. Midoraisa, all one needs to do is 3 times go around with the long string, three times go around, and then do a knot on top of that. The gams there who halacha-theory we say. The knot is a halacha-theory, so one has to have a knot on top. And it's kind of the shape gedil. This keeps the gedil. Without this, the gedil would unwrap. After this, he's done enough midoraisa. This explains the Shulchan Aruch in the previous seif. We discussed there that if one did even one lot of windings and then the knot on top, and then afterwards he cut the tzitzis. We mentioned that if you put one long string through, in and out 4 times, right? And that therefore, and you only cut it afterwards, it's possible. So even if you did that after just one lot of windings and one knot, it's already possible. That's what he said in the previous seif.
Because the one knot fulfills the mitzvah.
That's because midoraisa, that's already enough for the mitzvah. But you finish the mitzvah midoraisa. Midoraisa, just one lot of windings, even 3 windings, and then a knot, that's already enough to do the mitzvah.
Does that mean if your tzitzit snap, or we're going to get to this in a second probably,
right?
If it snaps, you could unwind some of the knots and make your tzitzit longer?
It's an excellent question. Now we're going to see that midrabanan we need more than this, right? But midoraisa this is enough,
right?
So
if you had 4 knots,
one should.
if you had 4 knots,
Yeah.
and you undid 2 of the knots, right?
Yeah.
It would make the length of your tassels longer.
That's correct.
Right. So if the tassels snapped, the question is, could you do that? You would be meeting the rabbinic demand, but you would still meet the Torah.
It definitely would be preferable if it's in the case where you can't.
As opposed to everything being too short.
Right. And we're going to see the Mishnah is going to talk about it in a minute.
Okay.
He's going to talk about if it's just before Shabbos.
Right.
During the week, one should fix it. But if it's
Right.
just before Shabbos, where one hasn't got time to do more knots,
Right.
then
Yeah,
we're going to
that's
see
what I
he's
was
going to
thinking.
mention whether one should do something like this.
If you got the 4 knots and then it snaps after the 4th knot, that's all.
We mentioned just now that one needs the tzitzis are referred to in the Torah by 2 different names. They're referred to as tzitzis. They're referred to as gedilim. Tzitzis is also it means individual strings, like the hair. Hair is referred to as betitzas roshi, the locks of hair. Strings, and your hair is not wind round. There are some people that do that. But most hair are individual strings; they're not connected. Whereas gedil means winded up. It's been winded. So because the tzitzis is referred to as both, from there we learn that one has to have both in our tzitzis. One has to have both knots and windings. In addition to that, one also has to have the individual strings. So if one only has the windings and one doesn't have the strings, the tzitzis are possible. How much of the, we said lechatchila, it should be a ratio of 1 to 2, meaning 1 part gedil to 2 parts tzitzis. Right? Therefore, preferably, we mentioned the tzitzis should be 4 gedolim of gedil. 4 gedolim, according to Reb Chaim Noah, is 8 centimeters. 8 centimeters of windings and 16 centimeters of tzitzis. If it's longer, then one should try and keep to this ratio of 1 to 3 if one can. Right? This is preferable. If they snap, how much does one have to be left in order for it still to be kosher? That's what the next simon is talking about. That's what we're going to see in the next simon. How much needs to be left for the tzitzis still to remain kosher? Okay. Okay. So we just saw that. Where are we up to now? We just saw the midiraisa. It's enough to have 3 windings and then 1 double knot. And the midiraisa, that's good enough. He's going to mention exactly now what we're talking about, Erev Shabbos. One can rely on this on Erev Shabbos, just before night Erev Shabbos, and he notices the tzitzis has snapped. On Erev Shabbos, right? One needs to wear tzitzis on Shabbos. He hasn't got any other strings. His tzitzis are too short, right? He can do this. He can just do the 3 windings, 1 double knot, and then he's got the strings, and therefore this is enough midiraisa. This one can rely on this on Shabbos if this happens just before Shabbos.
Because you can't tie tzitzit and make knots on Shabbos.
That's correct.
Right.
One should also preferably do the knot before the windings. Till now we only mentioned the windings and the knot afterwards. We also do a knot before the first set of windings, right. And one should preferably do that. Like we know to do. There are some opinions that this knot is also deraisa. This knot is deraisa, to do the knot before the windings. And therefore, preferably, if it's on just before Shabbos, one should do the knot before the windings, a couple of windings, do another knot, and then he's going to B'deraisa, he can make a bracha on this, and he can wear this on Shabbos. L'chol zeh B'deraisa, aber mit Rabbanon, tzorich lasos shlish gedil u'beis shlish psil. Mit Rabbanon, he needs to do 1/3 gedil, and 2/3 of psil. 1/3 windings, 2/3 of tzitzis. Canal. Seeing as the length of the strings is a total of 12 finger breadths, which mentions is 24 centimeters. He has said dalud gudolim gedil. I should do 4 finger breadths of gedil, which means 8 centimeters. He should leave 8 finger breadths of strings. That's 16 centimeters. This makes the beautiful tzitzis. V'akedim also chulio achas be'erev Shabbos im chashecha. Tzorich lashim techef achar Shabbos. If he did this idea of Erev Shabbos, he just did the minimum midoraisa, he should immediately on Motzei Shabbos, as soon as Shabbos finishes, he should complete it to be able to the Rabbanon, otherwise he's over on an Issa Rabbanon. We only allowed we only allowed him to do the minimum the rising requirement because it was Shabbos and he couldn't do more. But immediately on Erev Shabbos, he has to fulfill the Rabbanon requirements. So it comes Sabach Zayin.
The first, in this situation,
Yes.
where he's rushed before Shabbos and he's either untying his other tzitzits or tying fresh ones as quickly as he can, does he need to do 7 windings between the first 2 knots? Or can he do like 3 windings?
In this case, it's just before Shabbos.
Yeah.
3 is enough. We mentioned 3 is enough.
So you could do the 3 and then untie it and turn it into 7.
That's right.
And continue.
That's right.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. We mentioned that halacha-theory it should be one should try and make the ratio of 1 to 2, 1/3, 2/3. So the Mishnah was this is at the first. It says this, if one didn't do this, even if most of the tzitzis were wound, he did more than half, more than 50% were windings, and less than 50% were the individual strings, that's still kosher. As long as he still has a gedil and a psil, he has the windings and he has the strings, it's kosher.
Right.
The ratio of 2 to 1 is lechatchila, but the evidence it's okay even if the majority is wound, as long as he has both parts to it.
Right.
This measurement of 4 finger breadths, meaning 8 centimeters. This includes the knots. As part of the Zohar, preferably one should make the spacings between each knot 1 finger breadth.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do this, we're going to see now that he's going to explain. One should try and make all the gaps between each lot of knots. We have 4 gaps. 5 knots means 4 gaps. Each gap with windings should preferably be the same width. Then it looks more beautiful. Because the first one we only have 7 and the last one we have 13, therefore the first one they should be slightly more apart, and the second and the last lot slightly more squished together, so that between each knot of knots we have the same length, the same amount between each one. I should try and do that if I can. That's preferable. And according to the Zohar, it's preferable to try and make each gap exactly 1 finger breadth if one can.
But you're not, in this situation, you're not creating spaces, but let's say, I'm trying to describe this, not 1 is at the bottom of the talis, not 2 is after 7 windings, right?
Yeah.
So when you're starting not the windings for 3, you're not expected to create any space between the knot and the beginning of the windings. You're just supposed to make the windings a little tighter each time. Is that correct?
Well, it's the same thing. If you leave a little bit of space, it's the same idea. Because once the tzitzis are made,
the space will even itself out over time.
Probably even itself out.
Yeah, because it gets locked by the knots on either side, really.
Right.
And that determines how tight it is.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right. And then the Mishnah have gotten ayin. It's called ayin b'sheni test. The Mishnah Shulchan Aruch said 7, 9, 11, 13. That's the number of windings. Says the Mishnah b'kavonos of the Arizal. Kosov b'sheni ches. We do the second one 8. We do 7, 8, 11, 13. Not 7, 9. 7, 8, 11, 13. Chen is kibu achoyrin. The Zayin the Ches who Shem Shel Yud K. Zayin and Ches, the first two, 7 and 8 together make 15. 15 is the gematria of Yud and then Hey. That's one of the names of Hashem. Ko. That makes it Ko. V'achar kach Yud Aleph. Then we have 11 in the third lot. 7, 8, 11. 7, 8, and 11 together make a B'tzirfu Shem Shel Havaya. 7, 8, 11 together make 26. That's the gematria of Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'achar kach Yud Gimel. The third one we do is 13. Gematria Echod. That's the gematria of Echod. 1. Hashem is 1. V'zeh Hashem Echod. That's how we make Hashem Echod. B'tzitzit Shel Reb Shlomo Malchu Hoya Ba'avir Rishon Yud Krichos V'achar kach Hei. Reb Shlomo Malchu, instead of doing 7, 8, he would do 10, 5. 10, 5, 11, 13. 10, 5 because that's Yud and the K. The Yud and the Hey, 10 and 5. Right. We do 7 and 8, which make together 15. He would actually do exactly like the Yud and the Hey, right. 10 and then 5. Our minhag is to do so like the Mishnah Berurah says, B'Shem Darizal, 7, 8, 11, 13.
7, 8, 11, 13.
7, 8, 11, 13. Like the Mishnah Berurah B'Shem Darizal. That's right. Okay. Then he mentions here Simchot Ayin Aleph. Aleph Simchot Chesed, we talked about that, about the Dot and the Gishri. Toiv Lasus Hachutim Beinanim, Lo Ovim Lo Dakim, B'Shem Zeh Kedim Abeim. The thickness of the strings should be a medium-sized thickness. Shouldn't be too thin. Shouldn't be too thick. It's just for beauty. It should be a medium size. The question is what that means because it's all relative.
Yeah.
Nowadays they only sell 2 sizes. There's
That's what I thought.
thick.
Yeah.
So whichever one thinks, whichever one feels looks more beautiful.